What's up, everyone, and welcome to another Project X Talk review, episode number 3 in Gamepass and Review. And this week we got a big heavy hitter with The Medium, the first Series X and S exclusive dropping on Game Pass. Me and Tom have both played it, we've both finished it, and we're going to give you our overall impressions, our thoughts on the game. And no spoilers for this video. We might have a separate one where we do a little spoiler breakdown and go into the deeper our thoughts about it. But this is just going to be a spoiler-free review. So first question, Tom, did you like The Medium?
I liked it a whole lot, man. I'm really surprised. I expected I was going to like it just going into it from everything I've saw. And I liked it a whole lot more than I thought I was going to like it. It's a really good game. It's like for the first Series X launch title, I'm excited. I was surprised. And if we keep getting this kind of quality moving forward, yeah, I'm hyped.
Yeah, I was all hyped up about this game. It's one of the games I've been looking forward to since the showcase. But then we saw the review roundup coming out the day or two before, and everyone was, we saw a few 9s. We saw some scores a little lower than that. So this is one of those games where I was like, oh, I'm either going to love this game or I'm not going to like this game at all, because that seemed to be the general consensus. And I lean way closer to a 9 out of 10 than a 7 out of 10 on this game. Like, I would probably say it's a 9. I loved this game. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's definitely Bloober team's best game that they've ever made. I don't think there's any question about that.
Not their scariest game. Layers of Fear, I think, has that one down. But yeah, they're definitely their best game.
So that's something I wanted to bring up. I see there's a lot of discourse on, if you follow the Reddit and even Twitter. Would you classify The Medium as a horror game? Because it was sold to us as a psychological horror game.
Oh my gosh. A horror game, yes, technically, because psychological horror is a thing. But in terms of a scary game, no. It was I had one jump scare. One jump scare that got me. And I think we both know, we'll talk about it later on, but I think we know which one.
Yeah, I'm along the same lines. I mentioned before, I don't like scary games. I've only played, this is probably my 3rd ever horror game, with Until Dawn and Man of Medan being the other 2 I've played. And I like this one a lot more than both those games. I think this game does a lot of things much better than other walking simulator type horror games where, you walk around and you search for clues. But in terms of it being scary, again, apart from that one jump scare, I wasn't scared. I would say the way I'm describing this game is more of a detective thriller. I think that might be a better way to describe it. I do think in terms of the atmosphere and everything, that they do a really great job of establishing that, you're being creeped out, especially when Troy Baker, who plays the monster in this game, especially when he's around, he says some creepy stuff, and his line delivery is very good. I wasn't sure why you would get Troy Baker and then have him modulate his voice like that for the monster, but the more I played it, and I was like, okay, he's nailing this role. He's so good.
Yeah, like you said, the atmosphere was really good. It made me feel uncomfortable enough in like the other worlds, especially. But even in the real reality, it was just beautiful throughout. I love the way that the hotel looked, the atmosphere to that. You can see it's like broken down, beaten down, and but still sort of lived in a way. And I love that aspect of it. I really loved the what I guess what do you call the other world? The spirit realm?
Spirit world, yeah. Spirit world, I believe, is the official what they're calling it.
Everything that happened there, I felt like it was just so good. Like there was not one point, like visual wise, I was like, this does not look good. It was always like creepy with like like dead bodies, like with like receded inside like every single wall and stuff. It was like really good, and yeah, it gave me some shivers, but it was nothing that I was like gonna not fall asleep over.
Yeah, this definitely isn't a game where you're going to be jumping up and like, oh god, like where I feel like Until Dawn and Man of Medan definitely had way more jump scares and like the traditional scary things that I think of when I think of the horror genre. This is more Bloober Team sets the atmosphere with their art direction and the music. Oh my God, the music in this game. I don't know. I'm not going to spoil where, but there's a song towards the end of the game where you have to turn it on, and I'm not going to go more into that, but you have to start the song, and it's with Troy Baker actually sings in the song. It has the first song I think we hear lyrics in while you're playing the medium.
Yeah.
But that song, I've been listening to it. It's so good. It's chilling while you're walking around with playing that song. So I think Bloober Team nailed the atmosphere, the art direction, the music, everything about it is amazing. It really sets that tone they're going for.
In terms of gameplay,
Mm-hmm.
I thought the gameplay was good for what it was, for the kind of game they were trying to set out to be. And you don't ever feel like you're this super powerful medium character, honestly. Even in the spirit realm, there's really not a lot to do. She has two separate abilities. One's a force field, really, and then just one that powers up like an energy blast that you can use to power up generators and whatnot throughout the game. But there's definitely hints in there that mediums could be a lot more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just that little teaser there, and it was like, oh man, I kind of want to see what they're gonna do next.
Yeah, I think personally, I hope this is the start of a franchise for Bloober Team. I hope that we see this progress, and I would love, whether it's Marianne here or a different medium, or some other character in this universe that we were introduced to really go forward, tell more of their story, expand on their powers, because I think we see in cutscenes that Marianne is more powerful than they're letting us be. There's certain times where she'll use her powers in cutscenes to do things that we're not being allowed to do ourselves. And I think in terms of that is probably my one gameplay criticism. I mean, I think in terms of the walking simulator type, I'm going to keep referring it to that. My problem with Man of Medan was the input delay. Everything felt so sluggish, and it felt like a struggle to move. I didn't feel that way in the medium for the most part. I think the medium has better input delay from when I'm actually doing something. I did get a little frustrated in the stealth section at the start. I died, I don't know, probably 10 times trying to run away and hide and in the sections that they showed off in the gameplay trailers. But other than that, I thought the game controlled well. I'm just glad that they let you remap the buttons to have a better control scheme, because I think the default control scheme is pretty bad. The one they set up, I'm not running with left trigger. That's not something I'm ever going to do. So I was glad to see they gave us some options. Now, in terms of how the game performs, performance-wise, if you've watched Digital Foundry, obviously we're not Digital Foundry. I didn't record any specs while I was playing. What did you think how the game performed while you played it?
So much texture popping. It's not from like what Digital Foundry pointed out, was like when they pick up items for inspecting, every time that always has to load in that asset. But it's even more than that. Just swapping between the worlds, it's so notable every single time that you just like have to see like the textures on her jacket load in, and I feel like that really shouldn't be an issue. But I don't doubt that they would definitely correct it, later on.
Yeah, no, I think they've already started. They put out a patch already, the 4 or 5 gigabyte patch, which I think addressed some of the issues that Digital Foundry pointed out. But I knew going into it that this is a AA studio. There's going to be some technical issues. And I think regardless of the technical issues, the game is fantastic. But if we do have to look at it critically and look at the technical issues, my first introduction after the very first scene, when you load into the room she's standing in, textures weren't loaded. Nothing in the room. It took a second. I watched my brother start it up. He didn't have that issue. So it's very inconsistent. It's not the same textures. So it's very inconsistent about what's going on. I did have one the first time I switched, and this was pointed out in Digital Foundry. The first time I switched into the world, her jacket texture wasn't loading. The items were very inconsistent. Some of them textures loaded fine. Other assets took a second or two. I had one page. I had to sit maybe 5 seconds before I could actually read what it was. And I was like, this, I understand there's some issues, but we do need to address the technical issues. And I'm sure they'll put out a patch for it. My main technical issue, and I don't know if you had this, but other people on Reddit have, is not every time, most of the time when you're in a dual split cutscene, either way, and there's those little moths flying around in the spirit world, which is what it seems tied to, she would get these green and red blocks in her hair or on her face. And I've seen video of people that have it like way worse than I had. I would have it every few seconds and it'd be like one block. It wasn't really noticeable. I've seen people walking around in the spirit world and just little blocks constantly on their screen. It looks like your graphics card is essentially dying. And I'm like, if I saw that, I'd be worried. But then you hop on Reddit, you're like, oh, this is a technical issue in the game. So that's something I know Digital Foundry pointed out that still needs to be addressed.
Yeah. So I played it pre-patch and post-patch. Pre-patch, I was getting that issue a whole lot. I didn't know it was related to the moths, but it was really annoying to see the whole texture change like that with the little blocks. And it really drew me out of it. It's even worse than a texture popping. I'll take texture popping over that issue any day.
Agreed.
Post patch though, towards the I when I started up yesterday, I was playing the next half of the game. I didn't see that issue again, so I think it's something in there. It's probably already worked out on, but definitely first impression, that was a pretty bad start. But I want to say like you talked about the house in the beginning. When that house did load in, that house was beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
Some of the reflection, it does have ray tracing, minimal reflection ray tracing. So it's not what a high-end 3090 can do on a PC with ray tracing, obviously. But I thought most of the environments, especially the house, I thought the woods was pretty detailed, especially toward the woods you're in at the end. That was really good. You can see the individual grass and the plants, and I thought there was a lot of detail given to the environments you're in for the most part. Spirit World, it gets a little, because of the dual screening, I don't think it was as detailed as it could have been if they had a higher budget. But overall, I think the game is gorgeous. I don't want to bring it up yet, but I do have one complaint about the style, and I want to see if you're going to address it. So do you have anything else about the art style, the graphical prowess that we saw?
No, I thought their art style was like perfect in my eyes for what this game was setting out to be, and it really drew me into the world. So I'm good with that. The only complaint I really had was with the Spirit World. I felt like it was kind of bland at parts. Like there's no shadows, for example. In the Spirit World, there's no shadows. I guess it's inconsistent sometimes there, and their art style stays like good throughout. But I feel like the world itself, and in the Spirit World, like with these I feel like there could have been shadows in specific spots. There could have been. It could have been a little bit more scary, man. That's all.
Yeah, really. No, definitely. I think my main issue was that some of the character modeling was not great at points. I thought the actors did a great job. I had no problem with any of the like delivery of the lines or anything, but there were, even at the start where Marianne lights up the cigarette, like it looks very awkward. It looks stiff. And I know people compare it to Heavy Rain, and that's kind of reminds me of that game. You know, I don't know if you ever played Heavy Rain, but the models are very stiff at points, and it's not always. It's just inconsistent when sometimes the models are fantastic. Other times, I think they could have improved the motion capture a little bit, and maybe COVID impacted them with their motion I'm not sure when everything was finalized, but that's really my only complaint. Other than that, I thought everything looked beautiful. This is my first experience with ray tracing, and I was very, very pleased with it. I don't understand people that say this looks like a 360 game. I think you're all looking at through rose-tinted glasses, because go back and play a 360 game. Yeah. You can't have ray tracing on a 360 game. I did have a few the more technical issues when you were switching between worlds. Sometimes the models wouldn't load in correctly. Like my guy or my Marianne would be on the floor, like down, and then she would stand up. So it was very weird. She would be on all fours. So I think it was like supposed to be them like pushing their hands on the glass, but then they would.
Okay.
Yeah. So I haven't seen anyone else talk about that. That seems to be something that was only me and seemed to be a graphical issue. I had only 2 instances where I noticed frames dropping, and it was switching between worlds, but it was just a stutter, and it wasn't anything in particular. But I think the last thing we need to talk about is the story. How do you feel about the story of the medium?
I thought the story in this game is like the strongest point that it has. Uh the way that they present the story to you, it comes out in a really meaningful way, and the way it grows on you. Like when you meet your first character, Sadness, and that whole development from there moving forward, it gets really deep and really good.
Mm-hmm.
And just like learning about the Niwa Hotel, it was really good as well. Like a lot of the story in this game, it does come in the form of just like picking up items if you want to like get the full picture. But I honestly think in this game, in a lot of games, I would just say ignore it and just focus on the
Mm-hmm.
story. But I feel like it really adds a whole lot to the atmosphere, like the story, like of what's going on, and it lets you piece some things together, just so
Yep.
you can sort of get hints at like, oh, I was right. This actually happened at the end, and then I was actually happy when I was like, oh, I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely satisfying story and really good, just really good game.
Yeah. There's a point in this game, and I'm just gonna say wheelchair. If you play the game, you'll know what I'm talking about by when I'm saying wheelchair. But I think at that point, before wheelchair, that moment in time, the story is good. It's not great, it's good. You are immediate, you don't really know why you're at this hotel. You know that you help spirits, and that's projected through the game. Like you're helping spirits pass on to the other world while doing some investigation. And I do think that exploration and picking up those items and actually paying attention to them. This is the first game that I'm actually like reading things and connecting dots in this type of game, that it really let me sink more into the world. So I think that is vital. And I got all but 3 achievements. 2 of them were collections, and I only missed 1 in each of the categories. So I explored a ton. I collected a ton. I was fully immersed in this experience. But I think after Wheelchair, the story goes from more of a generalized game to very character focused. It gets very specific. It becomes a more personal story, and I think that helps elevate it in my eyes, from a good story to an absolutely great story. It becomes fantastic, more centered around Marianne, and you understand everything a lot more from where you started to where you are now, especially because she's telling you the story.
Yeah.
She starts the game. It all began with a dead girl, but I think the story goes from good to great after that one point, and I think they do that intentionally so that you have that moment where you're like, oh my god, everything makes sense now.
Yeah, I love that part.
It was great. Do we have any other topics that we need to cover for the review?
I just want to just touch on a bug that I encountered
Oh,
personally, and I guess it wasn't too bad because I was able to load up a previous save. I did have to work around for like an extra 10 minutes to get back, but there was a part where I was unable to proceed. Where there's a part where you have to climb some rocks, and for some reason the game wasn't registering that I can move forward after those rocks, and it would just like cut me off, and I was not able to walk.
mm-hmm.
And if you walk backwards, it'll throw you off the rock and you can't even climb back up. So that issue was resolved after I loaded up to save, 2
Mm-hmm.
saves prior, but definitely something that should not happen.
Yeah, that would certainly be frustrating. I did not encounter any bug like that, so luckily I had a pretty bug-free playthrough. I saw a handful of people mentioning, I think the same area you're talking about. So hopefully they get that addressed in a patch if the newest one didn't take care of that. But I know I said at the beginning, for me, I would rate the medium a 9 out of 10. What would you give it?
I would give this game an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
The story was great. The graphics were great. The gameplay I felt like was really good. I guess most of my issues lies with the atmosphere itself. I feel like it still was not scary enough for it being a horror game. Even it being a psychological horror game, I felt like they could have done a whole lot more. And I did play with the headphones on, like they recommended in the beginning.
Me too. Me too.
Because I felt like it would add, an extra element, sort of like what was the game?
Hellblade?
Hellblade. I felt like it would have added something sort of like that, where that game was a little spooky to me, but it really wasn't. And it really didn't add much either. Again, there was only one jump scare that I had at all, and it was kind of a cheap jump scare. And
yeah,
I wanted to be scared a little bit more.
No, I agree. I feel all that. I think we can settle on a 8.5. We'll meet in the middle. Give it an 8.5. All right. For that stuff. So I would definitely recommend checking it out if you have Game Pass. If you don't have Game Pass, I believe it's $49.99. So it's not a full price game. It is a AA pricing for the game, but definitely check it out. It's about 8 hours long. I blew through it in 2 sessions of one day. Tom, I think you took 2 days, right, to get through it. So
yeah, 2 sessions as well, though.
Yeah, so it's definitely not a long game. If you're looking for a great story horror game, I would definitely check it out. I'll do it for our non-spoiler review of The Medium. Remember, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more reviews like this. We're doing Game Pass in review about weekly these days. So if you want to check out that series, we got videos. Check out the podcast every Sunday. And you can find me at The Muffin Man on Twitter.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Chronicle Tom.
And we will see you guys for our spoiler cast video. Bye.